Hi everybody, my name is Eli.
I'm Jason.
I'm Caden.
I'm Jaden.
I'm Nicole.
And we're the Yahoo and the Torah YouTube channel, and this is the Letters of Shaul.
The Letters of Shaul, that's right. We are slowly and meticulously reading through the Letters of Shaul. It is a high Shabbat here, and so we thought we would read some letters with you guys as we're reading our family Bible time, and we thank you guys very, very much for joining us. If you haven't been in this series yet, we are into right now Romans 6, and we have gone through Romans 1 through 5, and so far in Romans, we find this book to be very, very good. Now, the problem that we have encountered is that, well, I mean, I'll put it bluntly, the words of Brother Shaul have sent billions of people to hell. Billions of people have and do believe that they are no longer under the law, that it's all about grace, that the laws of our Creator are done away with, and that is the way it is. Let me pause this real quick. So here we will begin with the Romans 6, and we are going to see if we are able to find if there's things that are against the Torah. Now, our job, we're not sitting here, we're not browbeating Brother Shaul at all. In fact, I believe all the encounters that Brother Shaul had, and I believe that if we had the exact writings of Brother Shaul, it wouldn't be as tricky as it is to understand. So first and foremost, if you are not learned or understand the Torah very well, it is very easy to fall into a pit with Brother Shaul. And so we have documented the Torah. In fact, if you have not seen anything else that we do, and this is the first thing you've ever seen, for the last 180 some days, we have been documenting the laws, statutes, and commands of our Creator in Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy. One thing people should understand is that our Brother Shaul was learned in the Talmudic Jewish customs. In fact, he had an extra 25 other books that he put in there. And when we started reading some of the things in Titus, it talks about deacons. When we are talking about things in Timothy, he qualifies widows being 60 years old and adds a whole bunch of other qualifications to them that we've never heard. So if we are to keep the Deuteronomy 4:2, which says do not add to or take away to the Torah, then we should not add things that Brother Shaul says that are not in the Torah. You can either take it as good advice, but if you're taking it as doctrine and it goes against the Torah, then it's just that. It's going against the Torah. So let us begin and let us see if we can figure this out. How's everyone doing?
Good.
All right, you guys all good?
Yep.
All right, so I'm going to break into this and handy dandy split screen. All right. And that's good, Eli. That's just it's just so slow. This poor tablet. Okay, Romans 6, here we are, and we are going to read Romans 6.
Is it 4?
Huh?
Are we reading Romans 4?
It's Romans 6. We made it through Romans 5. Did you not remember that?
No, I didn't.
Have you passed out last time? Did you follow? I was wondering if you were actually paying attention. But yeah, that was what we had. Everyone with me? You guys remember reading Romans 5?
Yeah.
Everyone except Cade? Great. Okay, here we go. Romans 6. What shall we say then? Shall we continue in sin that grace may abound? Never. How shall we that are dead to sin live any longer therein? Okay, what is he saying? He's saying, how can we be dead to sin? He said, shall we continue in sin first of all? Shall we continue in sin?
No.
Why wouldn't we continue in sin, gentlemen?
Because that's breaking the Torah.
That's breaking the Torah. It's breaking the laws of our Creator, and we should not live in sin. How do we know what sin is, Eli?
By breaking the Torah, it's what sin is.
That's what sin is, but how do we know what sin is?
By the Torah.
By the Torah, yes. Okay, so right out of the gate, he says, shall we continue in sin and let grace abound? Do you believe, after reading the Torah, that there is grace if we're not in the Torah? Anyone?
No, because you wouldn't need grace from breaking the Torah if you're not following it.
Right, and so if you're breaking the Torah and you do need grace, what does that look like to those who do not keep the Torah?
It's like you need repentance. You need to ask for forgiveness of sins.
Right, and the biggest problem I see is that the Christian religions don't know what sin is because they don't know what the Torah is, literally. Okay, verse 3. So he says never. Actually, let's go ahead again. Shall we continue in sin that grace may abound? Never. How shall we that are dead to sin live any longer therein? Who is dead to sin, and what is he trying to say here? Does anyone else have different scriptures? What's your Hallelujah scripture say?
Mine says, what then shall we say? Shall we continue in sin to let favor increase? Let it not be. How shall we who died to sin still live in it?
Is this 2 and 3?
Yeah, this is
One and
1
two.
and 2.
Okay.
We haven't made it that far. We can barely make it out of the second verse here.
What shall we say to all this? Are we to remain in sin in order that Yahuwah's grace, favor, and mercy may multiply and overflow? Certainly not. How can we who died to sin live it in any longer?
Right. So I guess when he's talking about being dead to sin, I would think that he was meaning keep the Torah. If you're not going, unless you know the Torah, you're not going to be dead to sin because you wouldn't know what sin is, and that's why everyone eats pig and everyone drinks blood and everyone does evil stuff. So, and if you're eating pig, that is against Leviticus 11. All right, it's a little iffy right here already, in my 2 cents. But does anyone have a breakdown of 1 and 2? He basically says we should not sin. Because we shouldn't allow.
Basically, he's saying we shouldn't be dead in sin anymore, which is basically we shouldn't be like.
He
letting
says
this sin
he
rule
says
over
that
us.
we are dead to sin. He says, "How shall we that are dead to sin?" He's saying that we are dead to sin. How can a person be dead to sin?
Because sin no longer rules over us. Because we now
Sin should not rule
because
over
we
us.
are obeying.
Obeying the Torah is what. That's the only way this verse could ever be. Okay, verse 3. Know ye not that so many of us, as were baptized into Yahushua HaMashiach, were baptized into his death? Therefore we are buried with him by baptism into death, that like as Mashiach was raised up from the dead by the glory of the Father, even so we also should walk in newness of life. For if we have been planted together in the likeness of his death, we shall be also in likeness of his resurrection. Knowing this, that our old man is crucified with him, that the body of sin might be destroyed, that henceforth we should not serve sin. Okay? This is all essentially saying that you need to keep the Torah so far. This is why the writings of Paul are extremely confusing. Verse 7, for he that is dead is freed from sin. Now, is he talking about being physically dead, or what kind of dead is he talking about?
I think he's talking about physically dead here.
I don't think he's talking about physically dead. I think he's talking about since we are dead, because he's talking about the being dead like Christ was, right?
Mine says, for he who has died has been made right from sin.
I think he's talking about those who have died in Mashiach, is what he was speaking of. What does yours say?
Mine says, for when a man dies, he is freed, loosened, and delivered from the power of sin among men.
So maybe he is dead. I don't know. So I guess you would be dead, but if you are dead and you haven't kept the Torah, you're in deep waters. Okay? This is extremely complex stuff. Now, if we be dead with Mashiach, we believe we shall also live with him, knowing that Mashiach, being raised from the dead, dies no more. Death has no more dominion over him. Okay? For in that he died unto sin once, but in that he lives unto Elohim. Okay, so he says he died unto sin once. What are we saying here?
He's saying sin, we died to sin. Basically, sin no longer should exist in us because we now believe in Yahushua.
For in that he died, and so this is what's saying, that Mashiach died. He died unto sin once. What does that mean?
That means he died, he killed sin.
That means that when he was hung on the tree or the stake or whatever it is, that he took the sins of the world upon him, right? So that he died with the sins of the world on top of him, like an innocent lamb, right? Like an innocent being. He died for our sins. But in that he lives unto Elohim. So anyone have a rough on that one? But the life he lives to God, is what that says in NIV.
So he lives life to Elohim. If he's going to live his life to Elohim, he's going to live it through the Torah.
Yeah, there's nothing else. We don't know anything else except the Torah. Okay, verse 11. Likewise reckon ye also yourselves to be dead indeed unto sin, but alive unto Elohim through Yahushua HaMashiach or Adonai.
So basically, you're not going to die to sin anymore if you have Yehoshua.
But what happens when you break the Torah and you are living in sin?
That's what he said. That's why you can't be dead. And when you break the Torah, you are now dead to sin.
You need to be dead to sin. Well, let's just continue on. Let's see what he says. Verse 12. Let not sin therefore reign in your mortal body, that ye should obey it in the lust thereof. Okay, so right out of the gate, he says that we should not let sin reign in our mortal body. How would you let sin reign in your mortal body, Eli?
By not keeping the Torah.
Yeah.
By breaking the Torah.
Yeah, that you should obey it in the lust thereof. Yeah, this is all Torah based. 13. Neither yield ye your members as instruments of unrighteousness unto sin, but yield yourselves unto Elohim, as those that are alive from the dead, and your members as instruments of righteousness unto Elohim. Okay, does anyone have a better translation, Jade?
Yeah, that's 13. It says, neither present your members as instruments of unrighteousness to sin, but present yourselves to Elohim as being alive from the dead, and your members as instruments of righteousness to Elohim.
Okay, that
So
makes
basically
sense.
it says, be like a servant to Yahuwah, be like an instrument for him, and not something for sin.
Right. All right, now it's about to get a little wild here, folks. Let's see if we can figure this out. For sin does not have dominion over you, for ye are not under the law, but under grace.
So I think he's talking about the law of sin. I mean, I think he's talking about more of like you're not under sin anymore. Like sin doesn't rule over you.
I understand what we think it says.
He
says, for ye are not under the law, but under grace. And then he repeats it. Let's go to 15 real quick. What then? Shall we sin because we are not under the law, but under grace?
So here's something important to note here in the Holy Scriptures. When they're referring to the Torah, they say Torah. Here it just says law, strictly says law.
Yeah, so what can we make of him saying that we are not under the law?
We are not under the law of death. We are
The spiritual death?
the spiritual death, or the spiritual death, where we sin and we have when you go to Judgment Day and you sin before Yah, you're no longer perfect. Now we have Yahushua, where we can plead His
These
blood for
verses
forgiveness.
have damned many, many, many people to hell. Many people. I've heard this all my life. Is about the grace, grace, grace. And and he clearly says, because we are not under the law. And they capitalize law in this
Mine's
version.
not capital.
This one's capitalized. In Sefer, he capitalizes it. Stephen Pigeon says that law is this.
Yeah, but
Mine has parentheses after that says as slaves.
As slaves. Yeah, so what could Paul possibly mean here?
so because mine's not, it doesn't say Torah or isn't capital law. I don't think it's talking about the Torah itself.
Okay, it says, for sin does not have dominion over you. How can sin not have dominion over you?
When you're not sinning, when you are mastering sin.
Right, when you have mastered sin, and it is not, you're not, I think what he meant to say, for you are not under the penalty of breaking the law, right?
Right,
But you're under grace.
You have grace to save you.
And that was the grace of Mashiach, and is that we should do that. So what do we make of 15? What then? Shall we sin because we are not under the law, but under grace?
So basically, he's saying you shouldn't sin just because you have a chance out of like you have repentance doesn't mean you should go sin.
This is like somebody taking a perfect sacrificial lamb, going and getting their sins with a priest, and then going right back out and committing fornication
Doing
with
the
another
same
woman. Yeah,
exact
it's the
thing
same
again.
thing, right over the words, and then coming back, taking another sheep and having it killed, that kind of a thing. So, do we have? What do we make of this?
I don't think
These are hard words.
I don't think he's saying not to follow the law. I think he's saying that we should still follow it. We shouldn't sin because sin is breaking the Torah. So it's obviously different things. You gotta remember, sin is transgression of the Torah, and that's what he knows sin as.
Right.
So when he says, should we go sin, he says, do not sin, so do not break the Torah.
Yeah, and he says this over and over, but then you get into the verses like this, and the Christians will hang their entire hat, they'll hang their soul on these verses.
I think he's saying basically you don't have to die anymore. So basically, since you don't have to die a spiritual death to go to hell, you basically have a chance to live. Should you go and sin just because you have a good chance out? No.
Yeah, and that's just crazy. I would never ever think that I could go sin and everything would be okay. I don't feel like that, but maybe.
I mean, look at the rest of the world.
Yeah, I see. Okay, verse 16. Know ye not that to whom ye yield yourselves servants to obey, his servants ye are to whom ye obey, whether of sin unto death or of obedience unto righteousness. So he says right there, if you guys thought that 14 and 15 were that you don't have a law, then he just basically blasted himself out at the next thing, because he says you yield yourselves, you are servants to who you obey. You're either going to be a servant of Hasatan or you're going to be a servant of Yah. And it's you either have obedience unto righteousness or you have disobedience unto unrighteousness. Okay, so that, you have to, when you're dealing with the words of Paul, you have to look at everything in context, and it can't be out of that. Okay, 17. But Elohim be thanked that ye were the servants of sin, but ye have obeyed from the heart that form of doctrine which was delivered you. Being then made free from sin, ye became the servants of righteousness. See, these are the Christian tripping points, right?
Yeah,
they don't think they have sin, right? That's why they can eat their bacon, they can bless their bacon.
Righteousness is following the Torah. See, he's talking about the Romans here. You got to remember this is also to the Romans.
Right, absolutely.
So he's telling, because the Romans didn't have the Torah before, so he goes, you guys are no longer, because they didn't follow the Torah, he goes, you guys are no longer under sin, you guys are no longer breaking the Torah, so now you guys are righteous.
Yeah, and that is a very, very good point. We are not We are not talking to us. You are not a member of the ecclesia in Rome. Paul is not talking directly to you. And so if you want to make this your doctrine, it's very dangerous.
You got to understand what was happening there.
You have to understand
You have to be
this.
there at that time point.
Right. It's about, eating the chicken, tossing out the bones, and eating the meat. And so you got to do that with Paul. All right. That's 19.
Yes.
I speak after the manner of men because of the infirmity of your flesh. For as ye have yielded your members servants to uncleanness and to lawless deeds, even so now yield your members servants to righteousness unto holiness.
Mine says lawlessness, or says lawless deeds. Mine says lawlessness.
So this would be Torah-less deeds. And if you do not keep the Torah, then you will be
lawless.
You will be lawless. You're a lawless individual. Okay? 20. For when ye were the servants of sin, ye were free from righteousness. Okay, so what does that say here? For when ye were the servants of sin, ye were free from righteousness. Okay, so basically says you're unrighteous.
Basically you had no Torah, you had nothing under. You were free from responsibility following Torah.
Yeah. What fruit had ye then in those things whereof ye are now ashamed? For the end of those things is death. Okay, and so he's talking about the fruit of being unrighteous, because that was the verse right above that, right? And so, what fruit do you have when you're evil and you're ashamed?
Yeah.
Why would you be ashamed? Because you're not keeping the Torah, right? You're going to end up on the other end of the receiving end.
No, you're naked just like Adam and Eve.
Right, absolutely. For the end of those things is death.
Right, and when you're following Torah, you don't have that death.
Right. Yeah, you would not have the spiritual death. We're still going to have physical, but we won't have spiritual. 22. But now being made free from sin and become servants to Elohim, ye have fruit unto holiness and the everlasting life. For the wages of sin is death, but the gift of Elohim is eternal life through Yahushua HaMashiach or Adonai. Okay, what about 22? What do we have? But being now made free from sin and become servants to Elohim.
So we're no longer under the penalty of sin, right? When sin, when it ruled over man, we know that it caused death. That's what he says in the last verse. For if you commit sin, you're going to die. That's what the last verse 23 is basically saying. For if you sin, you are going to die. But now we have grace, which is the right version of grace, which is we have this ability to escape death, the second death.
Spiritual death, right? We have the ability to that, but it is not for the lawless people. Matthew 7 clearly says that those who are lawless will be told to depart from Mashiach Yahusha. Okay, let's go on to the next one. Let's do Romans 7. Okay, know ye not, brethren, for I speak to them that know the Torah, that the Torah has dominion over a man as long as he lives. Okay, what does that mean? How does the Torah have dominion over us?
It should rule over us. It should basically be what we live our life by. We go ask the Torah what is right. We go seeking it, what is right and what is wrong. We don't sit there and take a wild guess and do what's right in our own eyes.
Yeah, absolutely. For the woman which has a man is bound by the mitzvah to her man so long as she lives. But if the man be dead, she is loosed from that mitzvah of her man.
All right.
NIV says, for example.
Okay, mine says, for the married woman has been bound by Torah to the living husband. But if the husband dies, she is released from the Torah of her husband.
Okay, so this was what we were talking about. That does a woman have any right to divorce a man? And there is precedence in the Old Testament of men divorcing the women and writing them a letter of divorcement. But Paul's this isn't breaking Torah at all. He's actually just talking about the Torah as it is.
She's free from her husband's laws.
Yeah, she's free
from her
husband
says she's only going to follow because he's dead.
Right, she's free from the laws of her man, and so when he is dead, that's when that happens. So then, if while her man lives, she be married to another man, she shall be an adulteress. But if her man be dead, she is free from that mitzvah, so that she is no adulteress, though she be married to another man. Right, and that
basically, so if her husband dies, then she can get married, and she won't be. She's done.
Yeah, that's it. So I mean, none of this is straightforward so far. Wherefore, my brethren, ye are also become dead to that mitzvah by the body of Mashiach, that ye should be married to another, even to him who is raised from the dead, that we should bring forth fruit from Elohim. Okay, what does that say? Let me read that in NIV. So, my brothers and sisters, you also died to the law through the body of Christ, that you might belong to another, to him who was raised from the dead, in order that we might bear fruit for God.
That's a terrible analogy.
This is why the Christians believe what they believe.
That didn't mean what that meant. He was just making an analogy there. It's kind of like, since you guys had death in the Torah, you guys died to death, so death died, so you're no longer under that Torah, you're not married to Yehoshua instead.
You're
Right.
married to life.
Yeah,
But that was a terrible analogy.
It was a terrible analogy, definitely. Okay, 5. For when we were in the flesh, the motions of sins, which were by the mitzvah, did work in our members to bring forth fruit unto death. Okay, so when it says we're in the flesh, that means we would be Torah-less. The motions of our sin, which were by the mitzvah commands,
Through the Torah, we were working in our members to bear fruit to death.
okay,
So basically, when we were sinning, we were bearing fruit to the sin.
to Hasatan, right? Bearing hidden fruit. Okay, 6. But now we are delivered from that mitzvah. What does that say? Why does this say mitzvahs? Where does your
Mine says Torah. Now we've been
Torah?
delivered from the Torah.
So yeah, and so mitzvah here should be laws, commandments. We're delivered from the mitzvah, that being dead wherein we were held, that we should serve in newness of the ruach and not in the oldness of the letter. Wow, that's difficult to say, because that just basically, if it was what he said. Let me read that in NIV. But now by dying to what once bound us, we have been released from the law, so that we serve in the new way of the Spirit and not in the old way of the written code. And this is what this is classic Christianity right here. Oh, we're not under the law. We have the Spirit. So Brother Shaul, whether or not people like it, has sent billions of people to hell. And it may not even be him. It's probably whoever constructed this stuff and put this together.
Technically, it's not his fault, because these were letters that were supposed to be in Rome and not put in a book for people to read as like gospel.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It literally says we've been released from the law. And I mean, how do we make up an excuse for Paul? What did Paul really mean here? I think what he meant was that we have been released from the spiritual death of the law, so that we can serve in the new way of the Spirit. But then he says, and not in the old way of the written code. And again, it says, and not in the oldness of the letter. So chapters 6 and 7 are completely whacked.
Yeah.
When we're dealing with this stuff, because this is why people get where they go. And I mean, you could take one verse, like right here, the Christians have completely freed themselves. All right, let's go into 7. What shall we say then? Is the Torah sin? Never. Nay, I had not known sin, but by the Torah. For I had not known lust, except the Torah had said, you shall not lust. Okay, so far so good right here. But sin, taking occasion by the mitzvah, wrought in me all manner of lusting. For without the Torah, sin was dead. Okay, what does he mean? I think what he's saying right here is, if you do not have the Torah,
There is no sin.
there is no sin, because there is sin, right? And that's the thing.
You don't know it.
You don't know it. Exactly, yeah, right.
Because he said, I did not know what sin was. But I think this is where it almost gets messed up in translation, where it's like, well, it's dead. But what he said was, those without the Torah, those who do not know the Torah.
So what does your guys say in 8 then? And read 8 and 9.
But sin, having taken the occasion through the command, worked in me all covetousness. For apart from the Torah, sin is dead. And I was alive apart from the Torah once. But when the command came, the sin revived, and I died.
Okay, well, so what do he say? For I was alive without the Torah once, but when the commandment came, sin revived and I died. What commandment is he talking about?
The basic, I think he said he just died to sin. I think this is the lust command, right? Because he's like, he lusted and he didn't know that was sin, but when he knew that was sin, he was dead. He realized he committed sin. He was in danger of death.
There's a reference to Psalm 73:22.
Okay, Psalm 73:22. We don't have any reference into this either. Okay, so you're getting Psalm 73:22.
Yeah.
Okay, let's see here. Verse 9, for I was alive without the Torah once, but when the commandment came, sin revived and I died without the Torah. So he's basically saying without the Torah, he was living in lust, and then when he figured it out, sin revived and he died. He knew that he was falling, and that's the thing, is we can live in sin, and it will still curse us. It will still get us even further. That's why when we have a remembrance of sin, we're supposed to repent. Okay.
73:22 says, so foolish was I and ignorant. I was as a beast before you.
Okay, yeah, I don't know if that even has to do with any of this. Maybe. I don't know. Let's continue on. Where are we at? 9? 10.
10.
And the mitzvah, which was ordained to life, I found to be unto death. Okay, so the commandment which was ordained to life, I found to be under death. For sin, taking occasion by the mitzvah, deceived me, and by it slew me. Okay, so I mean, essentially he's saying without the Torah, he was destroyed. He was owned. Wherefore the Torah is holy, and the mitzvah holy, and just, and good. Now, why can't it be just as clear as this, right?
I don't know. Why does it be confusing?
You can, the Christians will take one or two of these commandments and they'll kick it out, and they won't keep the Torah. But it says right there, the Torah is holy, and the commandment holy, and just, and good. Okay, if it's just and good, that means we should be keeping it, right? Okay, I don't know, Paul. It's not very clear. 13. Was then that which is good made death unto me? Never. But sin, that it might appear sin, working death in me by that which is good, that sin by the mitzvah might become exceedingly sinful.
Wow, that's
Anyone have anything else?
Therefore, has that which is good become death to me? Let it not be. But the sin, that sin might be manifest, was working death in me through what is good, so that sin through the command might become an exceedingly greater sin.
Okay, so I think what he's saying is he's saying once you know the Torah, then you understand the level and gravity of the sin, and it becomes exceedingly sinful because you know how evil it is in the sight of Yah. Okay, these are hard to understand. 14. For we know that the Torah is of the Ruach, but I am carnal, trafficked by sin. Okay, so he says right there
That sin controls
the
him.
Torah is of the Ruach, but he says he is evil, trafficked by sin. I don't know what that means. I don't know what exactly Paul was into that we would have this, but I mean, there's obviously something that he had going on that he's trafficked by sin. I mean, if you're trafficked by sin, that means you're into all sorts of stuff, right? If you're trafficked, that means sin has control of you. You're a slave to sin.
That's the NIV says slave.
Is that what it say? Oh, okay, slave to sin. Yeah, all right. 15. For that which I do, I allow not. For what I would that I do not, but what I hate that I do.
Sound like Dr. Seuss.
It sounds like some guy who's living in sin that can't get rid of the sin he's in. I don't know. It says, for that which I do, I allow not. For what I would that I do not, that do I not, but what I hate that I do. So he's living in sin and can't get out of it or something? I don't know exactly what that is. What do we have?
I do not understand my own actions. I do not practice or accomplish that I wish, but I do the very thing that I loathe.
Ah, well, he's living in sin. I mean, Paul needs to keep the Torah. Okay, let's continue on. If then I do that which I would not, I consent unto the Torah that it is good. Wow. Okay, and what NIV says, and if I do what I do not want to do, I agree the law is good. Okay, so he's saying that if he doesn't sin, that the Torah is good. Well, yeah, that's the point, right? That's the point. And the Torah is always good unless you're on the other side of it and you're sitting there snacking on your bacon bits and you're going to end up having to account for that. 17. Now then, it is no more that I do it, but sin that dwells in me. What? As it is no longer I myself who do it, but it is sin living in me. It sounds like an excuse. Sounds like this guy can't get rid of the dirty sin that he's in for whatever reason, and he's basically explaining this to them. So, that's strange because, I had a brother that was telling me that Paul kept the Torah like to a T, but it doesn't sound like it. It sounds like he's having some issues. And, this is the Christians. The Christians do not believe that they cannot live in sin. And we're not saying we're sinless. We're not saying we do not sin. We sin like everybody else. But if you're consciously sinning to the point that you know you're doing evil and that sin has control of you, then you're definitely on the wrong track. And we should not be doing this. Okay, 18. For I know that in me, that is, in my flesh, dwells no good thing. For to will is present with me, but how to perform that which is good I find not. So again, he's saying that he cannot get rid of these, whatever the hidden sins are or the problems in his life, right? And is anyone with me? Can you pay attention on this? I need all of you guys here. This is hard stuff to figure out here. Okay, so what does it say, Jade? What does yours say? 18.
It says, for I know that in me, that it is in my flesh, dwells no good. For to want is present with me, but to work the good I do not find.
See, I don't understand.
He can't do good. I don't know.
No, is man's flesh good?
No.
Is the heart of man good at all?
No.
No.
It's wicked. It's completely wicked, and we will find evil stuff to do. Maybe that's what he's saying. Maybe he's not admitting to living in sin. I don't know.
Mine says, "For I know that nothing good dwells in me, that is in my flesh. I can will what is right. But I cannot perform it. I have the intention and urge to do what is right, but no power to carry it out."
I don't know what this guy was into, but it doesn't sound like this guy was extremely holy. And I know everyone's going to yell at me, and everyone's like, well, I'm just reading it, and this is what it says. It says he cannot figure out how to
do good. He says he does evil, and he can't stop himself.
What can you fall into that you're doing this kind of stuff? I don't know. Okay, 19. For the good that I would, I do not, but the evil which I would not, that I do. Wow.
Why does he sound like Dr. Seuss book? Man?
Why does he sound like every Christian? They're like, oh, we can't keep the Torah. Nobody can keep that. Here's my bacon, right? That's what he's. I don't know what he's saying.
Mine says, "For the good that."
All right, so we just had a slight difficulty and things just broke up, but let's continue on with this thing. Let's go over 19 again. For the good that I would, I do not, but the evil which I do not, that I do. Nicole, you had a different version of that, or you had a different?
This one says, "For I fail to practice the good deeds I desire to do, but the evil deeds that I do not desire to do are what I am doing."
Yeah.
So he can't stop sinning. Like he wants to do good, but he can't. Like for some reason, he's decided Rome was gonna be his confessional.
Yeah, this is interesting. Okay, now I guess a Christian, this is the God of the Christian church, and this is their man right here. So I guess they are just like him. Okay, 20. Now, if I do that I would not, it is no more I that do it, but sin that dwells in me.
Well, yours is hard. And if I do that which I do not want, it is no longer I who work it, but the sin dwelling in me.
He's almost saying
can't
he's
control
getting
sin.
Ratatouille, like where he's getting controlled by sin.
Yeah, it's very very weird. This is what we don't want to be. We don't want to end up like this. Okay, 21. I find then a rule that when I would do good, evil is present with me. Okay, what does your say?
I find therefore this law, that when I want to do good, that evil is with me.
Okay, this dude cannot do good. I got it. This dude keeps sinning.
There's something. He's got some horrible thing that he's into.
Something in the closet.
Yeah, definitely in the closet, something or the other. Okay, for I delight in the Torah of Elohim after the inward man. But I see another law in my members, warring against the Torah of my mind and bringing me into captivity to the law of sin, which is in my members. What in the world sin did this guy have?
I need to go read another book after this to understand this.
What kind of life did this guy live?
Maybe trying to talk about repent for past sins.
Maybe. I mean, were drugs available back then like this? I don't know if he's got drug addiction.
Are drugs technically a sin?
Maybe he can't stop with the women. Maybe he's a womanizer or something of the sort, and he can't stop dealing with beautiful women or something of the sort. There's something that is plaguing this guy hardcore that is talking about. Okay, so what does your guys say? 22 and 23.
For I delight in the Torah of Yahuwah according to the inward man. But I see another law in my members, battling against the Torah of my mind and bringing me into captivity. Members, I think he's talking about a body part. Members.
I think he's like either a womanizer or has some other issues of that nature.
Bringing me into captivity, the law of sin which is in my members.
Okay.
So his
he can't get out of sin. Whatever this guy has going on.
He likes bacon and his stomach's fighting.
I don't think he's fighting bacon.
I'm going to read you what mine says in 23.
Yeah, please do.
But I discern in my bodily members, in the sensitive appetites and the wills of the flesh, a different law, rule of action, at war against the law of my mind, my reason, and making me a prisoner to the law of sin that dwells in my bodily organs, in the sensitive appetites and the wills of the flesh.
Okay, so he's either into fornication or he's like maybe possibly some sort of drugs or something. I don't know. This sounds like, if this sounds like the mind of somebody who's battling some sort of an addiction, and whatever addiction it is. And we're speculating, guys. Don't hate us on this. We're reading it, trying to figure out what is going on. We don't have a book like this where Moshe goes, man, I just can't get rid of the women. There's Moshe or something of the sort. You're like, wow, Moshe, you know the Torah. Well, it's hard. It's hard to do it. The sin is just there.
Sin's in me, and I can't do
beautiful
good.
Women, I just can't do it. So there's a problem here, or there's a problem. And if this is the God of the Christian church,
this is the problem.
He's got some issues. Okay, let's go on into this. O wretched man that I am, who shall deliver me from the body of this death? I thank Elohim through Yahushua HaMashiach or Adonai. So then, with the mind, I myself serve the Torah of Elohim, but with the flesh, the law of sin. Wow, he literally
He said
said
he serves two gods.
he does say he serves two gods. Does yours guys say this? He
Yeah, it said the exact same thing. Thanks to Yahuwah, through Yahushua HaMashiach, our Adon. So then, with the mind, I myself truly serve the Torah of Yahuwah, but with the flesh, the law of sin.
So
Okay,
there's that law, that lowercase law.
Yeah, and this one is uppercase law, but then let's read the NIV. That helps out. Thanks be to God who delivers me through Jesus Christ our Lord. So then I myself in my mind am a slave to God's law, but in my sinful nature a slave to the law of sin, which would be correct. If you are breaking Torah, you are a slave to sin. You're a slave to
He
Hasatan.
has some issues, it seems like, and he had nobody help him out, so he decided to take the people he was teaching and confess to them.
He needed to get married. He should have got married, is what he should have done. He should have got married, settled down with a wife, and he could have bypassed some of the stuff he's doing. And if that's even the sin, I just can't envision what kind of sin back in the days that you could be into. I mean, I do not know. Okay, Romans 8. Let's do this. We'll do this last one. This is very confusing. Hopefully we're not confusing anybody out here. We're just reading it as it says, trying to get through this, and trying to find out if there's any things outside of the Torah. And I don't think it's this outside of the Torah. He says the law is gone, that's crazy, because it says the law is good for all generations, for all time. That's the only thing I can see. Other than this seems like a confessional that he's explaining that he's got a lot of issues. And he definitely needs Messiah Yahusha, but he needs the Torah. But this guy knew the Torah, so I don't know. Maybe everyone's going to yell at us and say, you guys don't understand Paul." I don't know. Let's go. Romans 8. There is therefore no condemnation to them which are in Mashiach Yahusha, who walk not after the flesh, but after the Ruach. That's what it says again. This is what the Christians have told me for years and years and years. There's no condemnation to them which are in Mashiach.
You're not in Mashiach if you're sinning.
Yeah, well, that's what they don't understand.
That's what it says down at the below. Because he's talking about before, those who are under the sin of the flesh, which is sin, then you're not in Yahushua HaMashiach.
I'm sure there's a good meaning to all of this. I'm not finding it, though. Let's keep on. For the Torah of the Ruach Kaimim in Mashiach, Yahusha has made me free from the law of sin and death. Okay, so again, that's
great.
Well, okay, so what does your guys say?
For the Torah of the Ruach of the Kai in Yahushua HaMashiach has freed me from the law of sin and death.
Okay, and I don't think it's freed him from the law of sin.
The Torah isn't the law of sin; it's the Torah of opposite of sin. When you break it, then you're sinning. Then you're
right. That's true. That is true. All right, I'm there. All right. 3. For what was impossible under the law for the flesh to do, Elohim did in sending his own Son in likeness of sinful flesh, and for sin, condemned sin in the flesh, that the righteousness of the Torah might be fulfilled in us, who walk not after the flesh, but after the Ruach. That would be correct.
Okay, that was great.
Right?
That's great. How do we get from the last chapter to this? This is much better. I don't understand.
It says the righteousness of the Torah. That's what it is. The Torah is righteous. There's nothing that can be except holy, righteous, right, perfect, correct, everything, right? Let's go 5. For they that are after the flesh do mind the things of the flesh, but they that are after the Ruach, the things of the Ruach. Right.
Great.
That's good. There
Good
we
job,
go.
Paul. Good job.
Yep. For to be carnally minded is death, but to be spiritually minded is life and peace. Right.
Oh,
Yeah, if you live in the flesh, you're going to die. But if you're spiritually minded, it's life and peace. Why is it life and peace if you're spiritually minded?
Because it's mostly about the next life. When you die, you're not questioning what's going to happen to you. You know what's going to happen. You're not going to be burning.
It's what James talks about is the freedom of the Torah, and everyone's like, "Well, that means there's
I'm
no
free.
Torah. Yeah, no bondage for me." No, that doesn't mean it. It means that you're not going to be under the if you know the Torah and you break the Torah, you will live in fear. Because you will know that our Creator is going to judge you for what you are doing wrong. And so if you want freedom of the Torah, then you're keeping the Torah because you're not going to fall under those same kind of things. Go ahead.
I was just thinking, what if Romans 7 was a letter to him from somebody from the church? They were saying they had the sin, and then now he's responding back to them. I know that's probably not what it is,
I don't know.
but
I don't know, because it talks about other stuff, like you're not under the law and stuff. Then you go, should we get rid of the law? No. Maybe there is 2 letters combined here.
I mean, I wouldn't follow a preacher that I knew had some sort of issues like this, like, man, I live in sin, I can't get rid of it, I'm stuck in this thing. You're like, okay, well, let's get rid of the sin. What do you need to do? What's the sin, right? If you're a fornicator and an adulterer, let's get you married, right? Let's stop that sin. Let's get you married. Let's get a solid wife, and don't cheat on your wife, and that's the way you can be. I don't know what the sin would be. Okay, 7. Because the carnal mind is enmity against Elohim, for it is not subject to the Torah of Elohim, neither indeed can it be. That actually makes sense, right? Mm-hmm. Because the fleshly mind is an enemy against Yah, because it's not subject to the Torah, because you don't care about the Torah. It's not your boss, per se. So when they that are in the flesh cannot please Elohim, absolutely, right? We cannot
make him angry.
Yes, but ye are not in the flesh, but in the Ruach. If so be that the Ruach Elohim dwell in you. Now, if any man have not the Ruach Mashiach, he is not his. Okay, and so basically, if you do not have Mashiach Yahusha, then you do not call upon the name of Messiah Yahusha, you're in trouble. Okay, and if Mashiach be in you, the body is dead because of sin, but the Ruach is life because of righteousness. And again, that's the Christians like, well, I can't sin. I got the Spirit. I got the Holy Spirit. I have Jesus Christ, and I cannot sin. And if I do sin, then I can just, I just have to ask for forgiveness. That's the way it is. It's all about grace. Yeah, pray it away. Okay, 11. But if the Ruach of him that raised up Yahusha from the dead dwell in you, he that raised up Mashiach from the dead shall also quicken your mortal bodies by his Ruach that dwells in you.
And that shall also give life to your mortal bodies.
Okay, yeah, absolutely. And that's good. Therefore, brethren, we are debtors, not to the flesh, to live after the flesh. For if ye live after the flesh, ye shall die. But if ye through the Ruach do mortify the deeds of the body, ye shall live. All right, what does your say on that? 13. Anyone?
It says, for if you live according to the flesh, you are going to die. But if by the Ruach you put to death in the deeds of the body, you shall live.
Okay. Well, there he is. And that's what he needed to do in the last chapter, is whatever sin that he was in, if he recognizes it, he's got to deal with it.
He tells us how to do this, but he said
he couldn't. Yeah, I know. He says he can't over and over.
How can
That's
you
why I
not
think it was
stop?
somebody writing to him.
Somebody writing to him. Or he could just be a womanizer. I mean, you don't know. And okay, here we go. 14. For as many as are led by the Ruach Elohim, they are the sons of Elohim. For ye have not received the Ruach of bondage again to fear, but ye have received the Ruach Amatz, whereby we cry, Abba, Father. And that is spirit of adoption. What does your guys say?
The Ruach of adoption as sons, by whom we cry out, Abba, Father.
Okay, for ye have not received the Ruach of bondage again to fear. What is the Ruach of bondage? See, and that's the thing. The Christians will go, well, that's the Torah. That's bondage.
Mine says spirit of bondage. Mine doesn't say even Ruach. It says spirit. A Ruach is like good thing, but this is spirit, which is bad.
Okay, so he says the Ruach of fear. Is it what your guys say?
Ruach of bondage. Okay. Spirit of bondage.
It says bondage again.
Again to fear.
Okay, I don't know what the spirit of bondage is.
So it says spirit of slavery to put you once more in the bondage to fear.
So the NIV is different.
Yeah, the spirit you receive does not make you slaves, so that you live in fear again. Rather, the spirit you received brought you about your adoption to sonship, and by him we cry, Abba, Father. Sonship, is that the Greek word for adoption? Okay, so it's basically being adopted by Yah. Okay, 16. The Ruach itself bears witness with our Ruach that we are the children of Elohim. Good. And if children, then heirs of Elohim, and joint heirs with Mashiach, if so be that we suffer with him, that we may be also glorified together. For I reckon that the sufferings of this present time are not worthy to be compared with the glory which shall be revealed in us. For the earnest expectation of the creature waits for the manifestation of the sons of Elohim.
Creature?
It says creature.
For the intense longing of the creation eagerly waits for the revealing of the sons of Elohim.
Okay.
The creature.
And another one, the next one. For the creature, and it does say creature, maybe it should say creation. King says creature. For the creature was made subject to vanity, not willingly, but by reason of him who has subjected the same in hope. Because the creature itself also shall be delivered from the bondage of corruption into the glorious liberty of the children of Elohim. For we know that the whole creation groans and travails in pain together until now. And not only they, but ourselves also, which have the first fruits of the Ruach. Even we ourselves groan within ourselves, waiting for the adoption, to wit, the redemption of our body. For we are saved by hope. But hope that is seen is not hope. For what a man sees, why does he yet hope for? For what a man sees, why does he hope for? What is your saying?
Who hopes for what they already have?
Who hopes for what they already have? Right, okay. But if we hope for that we see not, then do we with patience wait for it. Likewise, the Ruach also helps our infirmities, for we know not what we should pray for as we ought, but the Ruach itself makes intercession for us with groanings which cannot be uttered. Beautiful. And he that searches the hearts knows what is the mind of the Ruach, because he makes intercession for the Kadeshim according to the will of Elohim. And we know that all things work together for good to them that love Elohim, to them who are called according to his purpose. That's a beautiful verse. I remember repeating that in Awanas. I memorized that as a child. All things work together for good to those that love Elohim. For whom he did foreknow, he also did predetermine to be conformed to the image of his Son, that he might be the firstborn among many brethren. Moreover, whom he did predetermine, them he also called, and whom he called, them he also justified, and whom he justified, them he also glorified. You guys have any idea what he's talking about here?
I have.
Are you paying attention? Kind of.
I am.
Jade, you got anything?
No, I have no idea.
Okay, so let's reread this. I don't want to leave it at that. And he that searches the heart knows that what is mind of the Ruach. Okay, right. And we know that all things work together for them. Okay, for whom he did foreknow, for those God foreknew, and he also predestined to be conformed to the image of his Son. So that could be any one of us, right? That he might be the firstborn among many brothers and sisters. That would be Yahusha.
The inheritance.
Yahusha might be the firstborn. I
think Yehoshua, the firstborn, and we're all his brothers.
Because Preston,
Mine says he, which is capitalized. So
that's
it's Yahushua.
Yahusha. Okay,
it's improper.
Right. Moreover, whom he did predetermine. So basically, what he had foreknowledge and went and knew this, them he also called, and whom he called, them he also justified, and whom he justified, them he also glorified. That could be anybody. That could be anybody seeking Yah's stuff, right? Because Yah would know who his people are long before, right? He's going to know who he calls and who he doesn't call and that stuff. So, okay, what shall we say then to these things? If Elohim be for us, who can be against us? Yeah, beautiful. Absolutely. He that spared not his own Son, but delivered him up for us all, how shall he not with him also freely give us all things? Okay, what does your say on that? That sounds weird.
Truly he who did not spare his own bane, but delivered him up on behalf of us all, how shall he not, along with him, freely give us all else?
Give us all things. I don't know what... Graciously give us all things. I don't know what all things... Maybe he's...
Not life, because life is everything.
Maybe. Okay. 33. Who shall lay anything to the charge of Elohim's elect? It is Elohim that justifies. Who is he that condemns? It is Yahushua HaMashiach that died, yea rather that is risen again, who is even at the right hand of Elohim, who also makes intercession for us. This is crazy, right? The part, not this part, but what I'm talking about is crazy, is the Trinity, right? Right here it says that Mashiach is on the right hand of his dad. That is also what the Catholics say. The Catholics, in their little manifesto of the Nicene Creed, it says that Jesus Christ was made God of God, light of light, and he came and was born, and then he came up, and now he's sitting. So God of God is sitting at the right hand of God. They never say it. They say his Son, but then it's really...
Stop making me think.
It's tough. 35. Who shall separate us from the love of Mashiach? Shall tribulation or distress or persecution or famine or nakedness or peril or sword? As it is written, for your sake we are killed all the day long. We are counted as sheep for the slaughter. That must be, is there a footnote there? There has to be a footnote. Where does that come from? Psalms 42, 22. Nay, in all these things we are more than conquerors through him that loved us. For I am persuaded that neither death, nor life, nor angels, nor principalities, nor powers, nor things present, nor things to come, nor height, nor depth, nor any other creature shall be able to separate us from the love of Elohim, which is in Mashiach Yahusha HaMashiach.
Excellent.
Okay, so hold on here. How many, this is Romans 8. Let's see, how many do we have in this?
There's 12,
There's
13.
Okay.
There's 13, hold on. Yeah, no, wait, there's more than that.
Is there?
It's 16.
Okay, 16. All right, so we made it to 8. So I will, and that was two chapters?
Three.
Three. Okay,
Yeah.
we'll leave it at that. This was very hard to understand. I'm sure we will get a lot of hate.
8 was really good. 8 seemed
Eight,
alright.
eight was good. Yeah, 8 was really good. 6 and 7.
I think what it was is it was like reply and reply. How he put a letter under each thing that the guy wrote, and he wrote back to my
It could be multiple letters. It could be.
And then they put it all together in one thing because we can't see the original scripts, we can't see the original text, we can't see.
Or maybe Paul was being completely honest, and he has some dark demons or something in his closet he has to deal with.
It just doesn't make sense going from one to the other like it did. Like it was totally off, like he was a total sinner, and then the next one is like, oh no.
That might have been different timeline. He might have sent that 3 years after that first letter. That could have been like different times or like different letters.
Okay, so I guess the final thing here is so far in Romans. Would we say this should be read? I mean, is this something Christians should read?
I mean, they can read it for examples, see kind of what goes on, what Paul says, but I don't think we take it as gospel or like take it to heart. Like that's what absolutely we should do because it's not the Torah, it's not a law, it's just somebody talking to somebody a long time ago.
Jade, what people will say is all doctrine is for looking at, right?
Right, we can look at it for an example. We can use it kind of like the American law and based off what did these people do when this happened. But other than that, we shouldn't take like that to like we should actually do it like that.
Where is our line in the sand?
Our line is: does it add or take away from the Torah?
Yeah, does it add or take away the Torah? Does it complement the Torah? Does it do anything negative to it? And the problem here is that chapters 5 and 6, or 6 and 7, are very hard to understand. And like Peter said, Paul's writings are very hard to understand. And you have to be based in the Torah to get through this, because if you ever think that the law is gone or that you don't do it, and I think a lot of this may be lost in translation. When he says you're free to the law, did he really say you're free to the law, or he says you're not under the law, or did he say you're not under the curse of the penalty of breaking the law? Which, I guess, the Christians think once saved, always saved. You can never, get unsaved, and that's not biblical or anything of the sort, but I see right now why the Christians believe everything that they believe, and it is very hard to comprehend this with Paul. So we will leave it at that. We will thank you guys very much. We love you guys. Please don't hate us. We're simply reading this, speculating on this stuff. If your deity is the brother Shaul, that's a problem. There's only one Elohim under heaven and earth, and it's capital E, it's Yahuwah, and his son is Yahushua HaMashiach, and his son is going to be our king. And so we need to be keeping the law, statutes, and commands for all times. Thank you guys very much. Much love.
Shalom.
Shalom.